It's 22 minutes to 12 now, and time for the tracks of my years. The man who brought Jilted John to you and who made the lives of anybody called Gordon a bit troublesome. The man who also brought John Shuttleworth and his manager Ken Worthington to you. Graham Fellows. He's choosing tracks of his years.
88 to 91 FM. The tracks of my years. BBC Radio 2.
And here are his choices. First, Tavares.
Tavares captured that tacky glamour that I remember from being a teenager, going to discos and seeing gorgeous, unattainable girls and then going to get your chips on the way home.
Tacky glamour is a good phrase to describe the 70s generally, don't you think?
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, Tavares were a very, very good musicians, and they had a sort of R&B background, and so it was interesting. Like with Kool and the Gang, and they sort of went into slightly almost babyish sort of songs, but through that you can hear brilliant musicianship, and the harmonies are superb on that. I nearly chose You To Me Are Everything by The Real Thing, which has a similar heart-rending sort of appeal. And Barry White I was a big fan of in the same genre.
But these all place you at a certain time in your life, yeah?
They do, yeah. Usually sort of being hopelessly in love with someone that was unattainable.
Right. Were you musical yourself at that time? Were you involved in music?
No, I wasn't. But those experiences possibly led to me writing Jilted John.
Right.
Gordon is a moron, because I was jilted quite a lot when I was a teenager. It was only when I had a hit record that girls started liking me.
Right.
Very shallow of them, isn't it?
Well, you could say that, I suppose, but we wouldn't name names, of course. The interest in music then was just, you were more of a lyricist, were you, rather than melody man?
Well, I'd like to think I've done both. As Paul McCartney once said to me on New Year's Day, 1982, there's a name to
That's
drop.
a good one.
Yeah. He said, keep writing those songs. Took me and John a long time to get anywhere. Keep writing those songs. And so I did. So unfortunately, did he? No, that was a joke.
No, he wrote more.
He wrote
a
lot more famous as well.
So Jilted John, anyway, that came about perhaps because of your experiences, but were you sort of directing it towards anything? Did you have an aim in mind for that song?
Not at all, no. I was at drama college and I picked up a guitar in the canteen and couldn't play the guitar, but somebody said, well, if you just tune all the strings to an open chord and then put your finger across different frets, you'll get different chords. So I did that, and that's how I came up with that riff. Da, 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 da. And the song was written in about 20 minutes in my lunch break.
And were you surprised by, I mean, I know it didn't take off immediately, but were you surprised by its success?
I'm glad you didn't say, and it shows then, Ken. I was very surprised. There was a bit of a groundswell. The late John Peel was playing it a lot. And I think Simon Bates picked up quite early on it. And so when John Peel and Simon Bates were playing it, we thought, whoa, it's going to do well. Yeah, it just sort of, it was the summer of 78 and it just captured a mood. It's of its time, I guess. But then, I've got kids and like some of them have it on their iPod.
Both perhaps.
and completely unrelated. So like it's a song that sort of is still appeals.
Yeah, it's a classic, obviously. Was there a Gordon? A literal Gordon?
No, there wasn't. But it was one of those names, a bit like Gary's and Gordon's. They were the ones that got the girls, Ken. That's the way I saw it.
Yeah.
No?
I don't really remember.
Maybe
that.
Gary's did, maybe not Gordon's.
Exactly.
But Gordon also does kind of rhyme with moron.
Yeah.
So that's why. But can I just tell you something? I've met quite a few guys called Gordon, and they've always come up to me smiling, shaking my hand. I would have expected at least one of them to punch me in the face, but it hasn't happened. I'm so grateful. So Gordons are obviously not morons, they're just very nice people.
Obviously a great taste, obviously, in that. Right, next choice is Little Bit Me, Little Bit You from the Monkees.
Well, this is the first single that I was going to say I ever bought. It was bought for me by my Auntie Joan when I was about 8. Basically, the Beatles were a bit too weird for me, age 7 or 8. I always remember listening to A Hard Day's Night and not understanding the title. In fact, I still don't. Do you?
No, you know.
And I've been working like a dog. And what? I've been working like a dog? Didn't know dogs work. So anyway, the Monkees, to me, they weren't weird. They were just zany. And I absolutely fell in love with them and the whole concept of the Monkees, and watched the TV series and everything. In fact, I was so obsessed with them, I remember telling friends that the Monkees were coming to my house for tea. I didn't specify which day, but every day they say, "Have they been yet?" No, but they're coming next Thursday, and then I'd specify. Yeah, I did the same with the kids from The Sound of Music because I wanted them to come round, but they never did. When this came out, me and my friends were sort of really transfixed by the song, and particularly the Moog. And I think you'll correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was the first time a Moog had been used on a pop record.
Yeah, on a pop record. I think you're absolutely right.
Rather than prog rock It was written, I think it was an early track by Giorgio Moroder. He certainly wrote the music. Yeah. So he was Italian, and then the lyrics were in German. It was a hit in Germany, I think. And so the lyrics been translated, I think. And the lyrics, I kind of analysed them recently. They're kind of weird. They're really weird, aren't they? Son of my father, moulded I was, folded I was, preform packed. Son of my father, commanded I was, branded in a plastic vac, surrounded and confounded by statistic facts.
Yeah, it's not.
I mean, it's quite clever, actually.
Yeah, but you wouldn't set out in English to write that, really, would you?
So, yeah, it's just one of those songs that reminds me of being a schoolboy, really, and listening to Pick of the Pops. And we used to write down the chart positions every week. They had a follow-up, didn't they? Good Grief, Christina. Yes. Which is a ridiculous title. No one would call a song Good Grief, anyone's name, apart from maybe John Shuttleworth. It's sort of a John Shuttleworth title, my other character.
Yes, well, yeah, we know of John very well.
Good Grief.
And of course, John had a manager, an agent called Ken.
He did.
Yes,
I do, Ken.
It's a kind of a comedy name nowadays, I'm afraid. It wasn't in Scotland, I may point out, but
no.
As an English name, it's kind of a comedy name.
Well, it's a very solid name. Sometimes Ken is called Kenny, if you want to sound a bit more showbizy.
Cooler, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, why, have you not considered calling yourself Kenny Bruce?
Well, I was originally, and then the BBC stopped me.
Because it rhymed with Lenny Bruce?
No, I had to be Kenneth.
Kenneth?
Because I was a formal broadcaster in those days.
Right.
An announcer. So they wouldn't let me be Kenny. Colin Blunstone, that's a beautiful voice.
Big contrast. I mean, I wasn't particularly aware of the Zombies when I was 12 or 13 when this came out. But this song always reminds me of when tying my shoes or polishing my shoes to get ready to go to my first party, proper party, with cider. Remember those parties, Ken? Oh, he's not saying anything.
I don't know. I was teetotal until I was 46.
Okay.
Yeah.
Last year. Yeah. But, yeah, so, it's sort of like Baker Street. When I hear Baker Street, I smell an old convector heater in my bedsit in Manchester.
Burning
When
dust.
Yeah, the dust, the smell of the dust. That's the beauty of songs, isn't it? They can create that memory. But it's not just that. I think it's a great song. I mean, the way, in the same way that the Moog defined Son of My Father and sort of startled the ears, the use of a string quartet on that song was quite brilliant.
I realize that I've been in your eyes some kind of fool. What I do, what I did, stupid fish, I drank the pool. I've been doing some dying, now I'm doing some trying. So say don't mind, you let me off this time.
Closer, Jack, is it true what Mommy says? You won't come back, oh no, no. Closer, Jack, is it true what Mommy says? You won't come back, oh no, no.
It's kind of a little bit dated now, that song. I mean, what's interesting is the kids. At the time, I thought, I mean, that was the hook. It was really amazing to hear just 2 or 3 kids, not a big choir,
Yeah.
just 2 or 3 kids singing. One of them very out of tune, actually. But it reminds me of going to the library with my sisters. Again, I don't know why. Where would I have heard that? In the library?
Yeah.
They
I wouldn't have thought so, no.
Don't play music in the library. A beautiful song written by Mark Weiss, who was German, and Keith West, great singer. It's a great song. It's just a complete one-off. And the reason I said it was German, it's interesting because to me it's sort of quintessentially English, but it was a German song.
Yeah.
So what
That's
does that
a sort of
say?
theme running through your choices, because we had Chicory Tip, which is a foreign lyric, translated into English or given an English version, and here we've got something by a German, which is thought of as being very English.
But that's accidental. It is. I mean, it's because I researched these songs. Having picked them, I thought I'd better Wikipedia them, and it's amazing what you can uncover about. You know, I think singles have always been more interesting than DJs give them credit for. Not picking on you here,
No,
John,
absolutely.
But you know, so often DJs just sort of use it as a break for the next bit of chat. But there's an incredible story behind every single that's made, and I think it would be interesting to hear them more sometime soon.
Okay, noted.
So will you do that?
Noted. It will be done.
Well, that's what this is about, isn't it?
Exactly. It's a two-way conversation. Your next choice is John Otway. Now, you're heavily involved with John Otway on your next tour.
I am, because I'm delighted to say John is my special guest on my Jilted John tour, which is happening in October around the UK. It's 40 years since it was a hit.
40 years since Jilted John was a hit, but this is the first ever tour by Jilted John.
It is the first ever tour, yeah. Because I just did a few gigs at the time when the song was out, and that was really to get my equity card.
Right.
Because at that time, the only way to get an equity card was, well, you're either one of 2 people that could join the theatre as a ASM or you're a young actor, or you could get it through juggling or plate spinning or singing through variety. So quite a lot of us at drama school were doing that, forming little bands and groups and going into pubs and getting your 5 minimum contracts, I think it was, and then you got your card. But there was
a catch-22 situation, wasn't there? 'Cause you couldn't work in the theatre without an equity card, but you couldn't actually get an equity card unless you'd been working the theatre.
That's true. But John Otway had this song called Really Free, which blew my mind when I first heard it. I'd not heard anything like it. I mean, punk was out and about, when I first heard Pretty Vacant by the Sex Pistols, similar thing. It just sort of assaulted the ears, and his delivery, his sort of half-spoken, half-sung delivery, that definitely inspired my song Jilted John. Not that I nicked the idea, but it inspired it. I'm delighted that he's coming on tour with me, yeah.
Well, I wake up in the morning. Tell me, baby, what do you see? I see my true love, and she walks up and she kisses me. I say, oh, baby, that's really free. I go walking down to your house. Tell me, baby, is it good for me? Your ma and pa, they just want to kick me. I say, oh, baby, that's really free. Oh, really free, really free, really, 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 really free. Kick me. I tried talking to your mama. Oh no, that's not good for me. Every time I go near your baby, you say, cool baby, that's really free. I tried singing in the bathroom. Tell me, honey, with the heat on me. Every time you move towards my body, I say, cool baby, that's really free. Really free, really free, really, 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 really free. Kick me. So I wake up in the morning. Tell me, baby, what do you see? I see my true love and she walks up and she kisses me. I say, oh, baby, that's really free. I go walking down to your house. Tell me, baby, that's not good for me. Your ma and pa, they just want to kick me. I say, oh, baby, that's really free. Really free, really free. Really, really, really free. Kick me.
John Otway, really free. John will be supporting Jilted John, if you see what I mean, on the tour Graham Fellows was talking about, and Graham was back choosing two more in tomorrow's programme.
That's a fantastic song. What a shame that the singer Annie Haslam told Melody Maker that acts like Jilted John should not be allowed on Top of the Pops.
Really?
Yes, she did. Because we were on my first appearance on Top of the Pops. I was on 3 times, singing live every time, I hasten to add, which not everybody did.
No, indeed.
You know, when I forgot the words on my 3rd appearance, my lips were completely in sync. I just sort of stopped. I'm so upset. Yeah, you'd think that would happen on the first appearance, but no, it was
Maybe
the 3rd appearance.
You've got too relaxed into your performance by the
I
third
think so.
one. Yeah.
But anyway, the first time I was on, Renaissance were on singing their fantastic song, Northern Lights, brilliant. I vaguely remember her being a little bit frosty with me. Because you rehearsed during the day, and she must have seen it and thought, "What's this? This isn't very good." But yeah, I read Melody Maker next week, and she'd said, "Jilted John was terrible. They shouldn't be allowing acts like that on Top of the Pops." Maybe she's right. See, I only reached number 4, but Northern Lights only reached number 11. So there you go. I had the last laugh.
Yeah, that's them told. Tell me about John Shuttleworth. What's he up to at the moment?
Well, John is having a little bit of a break, just doing the odd festival. I'm writing a book. Excuse me, Graham, I'm writing a book. Oh, yeah, beg your pardon, John. Yeah, John's writing a book. I'm helping him a little bit. And there's a tour going to be probably 2020.
Right. So Jilted John is the tour.
Jilted John is the tour happening in October.
Okay. And you have other characters as well.
Well, I have other characters, and just so everyone doesn't get too confused, I also perform as myself now. I'm doing a show called Completely Out of Character as Graham Fellows, and inevitably I lapse into character. So I get the characters kind of talking to each other and to me, but I talk about my life, and I play Jilted John Unplugged, and I even play the John Shuttleworth songs that were written for me originally, but because John needed so many songs, because I used to do a lot of Radio 4 shows, and so I needed like 2 songs a week. So I'd write a song for myself, like I wrote a song called You're Like Manchester, You've Got Strange Ways. But you've got style too.
Style? Oh,
do you get that one?
Yeah, that's good.
So I had to give it to John. So he'll be back, and maybe another radio series we're waiting to hear. But I created him when I was 25 or 26, and I put him at 46. Now I'm 59. I can't bear to have John become 60.
No.
So he's a little bit frozen in time.
Can he not stay 46?
No, but he's about my age.
Right.
I just hopefully looks a bit older.
He's just not moving as quickly as the rest of us. Right, okay. Next today, it's the Smiths.
I grew up in Sheffield, but I lived in Manchester for 10 years. And that, right through the time I was there, I got more and more miserable. So the Smiths became more and more relevant as a backdrop to my life. Their music chimed with any melancholic youth. Heaven knows I'm miserable now. But Ask, basically, for me, it's not the biggest hit, and it's not their best song, but it really captures what I was going through. Sort of early '86, I was in a destructive relationship. My mum was ill with cancer. My career wasn't going anywhere, and the song is just sort of questions what you're doing with your life. Don't be shy, ask. See, and then this wonderful couplet: spending warm summer days indoors, writing frightening verse to a buck-toothed girl in Luxembourg.
And this song, did it help at the time?
Oh no! Well, yes, it did, because it indulged my melancholy. But I also think, in a weird way, the Smiths had, I think their previous single was Panic, and they were being criticised in some quarters becoming a little bit too political, and so they came out with this song that they thought was just more happy-go-lucky. So it's a great song, and it sort of chimes with the times, I think.
Shyness is nice, and shyness can stop you from doing all the things in life you'd like to. Shyness is nice, and shyness can stop you from doing all the things in life you'd like to. So if there's something you'd like to try, if there's something you'd like to try, ask me, I won't say no, how could I? Coyness is nice, and coyness can stop you from saying all the things in life you'd like to. So if there's something you'd like to try, if there's something you'd like to try, ask me, I won't say no, how could I? Spending warm summer days indoors, writing frightening verse to a buck-toothed girl in Luxembourg. Ask me, ask me, ask me, ask me, ask me, ask me, because if it's not love, then it's the bomb, the bomb, the bomb, the bomb, the bomb, the bomb, the bomb that will bring us together.
What are you doing Sunday, baby? Would you like to come and meet me, maybe? You can't even bring your baby.
Jarvis Cocker's a few years younger than me, but he must be old enough to remember that thing of a way you'd say to your mates, hey, what are you going to be doing in the year 2000? And I remember with my sister Sally, we wrote down in back of a book different dates and how old we were going to be. And So when we wrote down 2000, I was going to be 40, and she was going to be like 41. And you couldn't envisage those ages. You were you were 42, weren't you? Yeah. But it's like the excitement. Kids now obviously won't understand that, but the excitement of wondering what 2000, this new century, was going to bring and what people were going to be doing cannot be underestimated.
Yeah. But we all thought it was going to be flying cars and
yes,
things
we
like
did.
that. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and streets in the sky and flying cars and. Are you going to live on the moon, Sally? Yes. I'm like, well, I'm not. I'm staying here. And also that the song beautifully captures that longing to know what people you fancied back then, what they're up to now. So it's a great song, and he's a very insightful lyricist.
Final choice is Digital Love by Daft Punk.
Like a lot of my choices, sort of is imbued with a bit of sadness, really, because or certainly emotion. My daughter Alice would have been about 10 or 11. I've got 4 kids, but she was is the eldest, and she was a big fan of Pokemon, like a lot of kids. Yeah. And I think I'd bought her a little music centre which could tape CDs, or you could tape off the radio, whatever. But I found a cassette once, and I just took it. I wanted to listen to some music, and I put it on in the car, and it had this song, and it just sort of made me burst into tears, because it's sort of the fact that she'd recorded it herself, off the radio or off a CD. I can't remember. It doesn't matter. I think it must have been off a CD. Are you allowed to do that, Ken?
Yes. I think that's all right, for your own use.
Yeah, for your own use. It's a very beautiful, clever song. It has this incredibly repetitive riff. It shouldn't work, but it does. And I think that there's a little film, a little sort of Pokemon-esque style film that goes with it. I suppose it made me think my little girl's growing up, hearing about digital love.
Well, we've got John Shuttleworth, as you said, coming back in the future, a couple of years maybe, and in the meantime, Jilted John, the tour, 40 years on, and Graham Fellows also available in stores here, there and everywhere. A busy time for you, and no suggestion of, I've done enough.
No, I haven't. Of course I haven't. But when I feel like that, and I do sometimes, and I've got a church in Orkney.
Yes.
Yeah, and I go up there, and I do a bit of painting. And when I say painting, Ken, I mean rubbing down the window pane, the sill.
Painting and decorating.
Painting and decorating, yeah. That's the proper kind of painting.
Yeah. And when you say you've got a church, it's you're not running it as a church.
No, it's deconsecrated.
Yeah, but it's a space.
Well, it is a space. It's a recording studio.
Yeah.
Available for hire. Well, it would be if I hadn't lost my audio engineer. He's left the island. Oh. So it's what's known as a dry hire.
Bring your own audio engineer.
It's called the Space Orkney.com. That's what it's called.
And Orkney is a beautiful, it's a special part of the world, isn't it?
Well, I think it is. Yeah, I fell in love with the Shetland Isles when I did a gig there, and then I made a John Shuttleworth film called It's Nice Up North, filmed by the brilliant Martin Parr, still photographer. Therefore, his video camera work was a bit wobbly, as I made a lot of fun of in the film. But I then realised Shetland's a bit too far, so I thought, well, let's go to Orkney. It's not quite as far. And saw this dilapidated church and put in a silly offer, and it was accepted. With the help of a grant with European funding, it was done up beautifully.
Right. Well, we hope we don't have to go up there too often.
No, I don't. Well, I want to get up there more. Yeah. And that's the thing. As I sort of wind down, if that does happen, then I would spend more time up there. Can I just say the title of my tour? I'm disappointed you didn't say it, Ken. It's Here We Go 2340.
Here we go 2340. Yeah, it's a cracker. That's brilliant. 40th anniversary tour of Jilted John. Graham, lovely to see you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ken.